Hey there and welcome to a new class in this CR course. In this case, we're going to see how to compose a panorama image. Let's select some photos that we're going to create, with which we're going to create the panoramic image. And we're going to go straight to Camera Raw to do this. Let's open it. And here we have the photos we've selected. To make a panoramic image, we don't need to even use a tripod. If the illumination is good and we're working with enough speed to get a photo that isn't shaken, we'll have to have a bit of care though when we're moving the camera to the left or to the right so that we don't lose the shot upwards or downwards. If it's a vertical panoramic image, we'll move the camera up. And now we'll see how the program is quite indulgent when correcting small inclination errors that we might have had in one image or another. It would be ideal for both images to have the same shutter speed, the same diaphragm, and the same ISO. So that way we should be using the manual setting of the camera so that we don't change any of the settings of the camera between shots. We did this with all these shots. We're going to select the first four that we're going to use to make the first panoramic. Before we do anything, what we're going to do is select those photos and click up here where it says Film Strip, and we're going to hit Merge to Panorama. All right, let's hit that. And we'll see how the processor is making a preview of how that panorama would look once it's finished. Okay, in this square that's shown up, we have various options. One is the auto crop option. We're going to turn that off. And then we have three options of projection that we'll create of those four images that we've decided to join. For now, we're just previewing, so we can choose which of these three projections is best in this merge. We're going to try with the spherical one, and it'll give us a projection that's a little more natural looking. Let's look at the cylindrical, which is, well, it's the only perspective that, well, where the union of the four photos doesn't give us a very good panorama. I'm going to choose the spherical. I don't want it to auto crop. I prefer to do that myself in case I want to rotate something in the end. Even if I hit now auto crop, I can always go back to the crop that I want. This is just for the preview of the image. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to tell it not to crop because I'll do it later. As soon as I hit merge, it's going to ask me where I want to save that file, because what the program does is join these four photos and create a panoramic image, but in a raw format. So we're going to develop later the final image that comes from these four with this perspective that we've decided it's going to have. So hit merge, and we're going to save this in the same place with the same name. I'm going to hit save. And now it's going to take its time while it's saving. And while it's doing that, we can start developing. It's already finished, so that won't be necessary this time. So as we can see here, and as I said before, the program is quite indulgent when it joins the images in a panorama, and it's going to modify and alter the perspective of each of these four photographs to merge them between each other with no problems in light or in settings. So if we crop now in a normal format, because there's no default format that's going to work with this photo, let's try to get the photo in the most space of that square that we can. If I have to rotate a little so that the crop square takes up more space, well, there's no problem. This way I can rotate a little here so that the image doesn't break here. If I crop a little bit or rotate it a bit more, you can see how I can get a little bit more space above and below. This is why I prefer to crop the image myself instead of doing an auto crop when I'm creating the panorama. When I'm finished, we just have to hit enter. We're going to get this picture that, as we know, is a DNG file. We can see it here. And now we could develop the image. So now we can make some color temperature adjustments, some saturation or intensity, some luminance. We can give the shades a little more strength. Looking at the histogram, a little more strength to the lights. We could give it a small contrast curve. We could go to the HSL panel, and with the targeted adjustment tool, we could get some more saturation in the blue, some less saturation, with less luminance to make them a little more contrasted. We're doing the same with green and the green saturation. Now we'd have a panoramic image. We can do as we always do, make a Snapshot, call it developed. And lastly, when we hit done, we can later decide whether we want to erase these 4 photos, as we already have the panoramic image ready. And these 4 photos are just to make the panorama. It's a decision we should take to not fill our computer up with images. Once we've made the panorama, it doesn't make much sense to keep them by themselves. Next, we're going to see the same process, but now with a vertical image. In this case, we've taken a shot in which we couldn't fit the whole tower in. This image of Venice, where we couldn't fit the clock tower in. And we've raised the camera to get a second shot without the bottom part. Okay, so as both photos haven't been developed and they have the same light and the same shutter and the same diaphragm, we're not going to have many problems to merge these. Let's hit here on merge for panorama, and the preview is like this. Well, we can see how the preview settings in the spherical projection doesn't give us a very interesting result. Let's see the cylindrical, and neither. We're going to see that there are some photos that are more difficult than others to merge. Okay, let's check the perspective, which is the one that looks the best. Whilst the panorama we had before worked best with spherical, in this case, the best projection is the perspective. That's why we always have to try all 3. It's not something that takes a long time, and we can see which of these 3 is the best result. Let's hit merge. Save it again in the same place in the origin file where the other 2 images come from, and we'll add in the pano suffix. So that way we can distinguish it from the other ones before, the camera raw 27 pano and the camera raw 27. So we have it located. The first thing we're going to do is to crop it, which is also going to help us to straighten the image. In this case, I want the crop box to be, more or less in the same direction as the tower. And if I make it a little thinner here, I can stretch it down a little bit more. This way, when we hit enter, the tower, as it's lined up with this vertical line, it'll end up straight. Let's hit enter, and there we have it. We have a straight tower, and it's ready to be developed. So let's start adjusting the color temperature a little bit better, making it a little bit more balanced. We're going to give the shadows some more light, and we'll add some strength in the blacks. We'll give the colors more clarity and more vibrance. As always, we can go to the curve panel and make a small curve, parametric or point, whichever you choose. We can change some HSL settings. We can give the skies some more saturation with maybe a more magenta tone with less luminance. And now, if we wanted to add in any effects, or we could just go to create our snapshot. That's going to be called developed. Okay, and there we would have our vertical panorama created. Lastly, we're going to see another, more simple one, in which we'd have two photos from some mineral docks in Wolva. And, well, we can see how here, in this occasion, neither of the two photos, as they've been taken with a normal 50mm lens, cover the entire space. If we decide that we want to see the end of the dock, well, in this part, we would be missing some parts, we'd be missing some information from this zone. And if we make the information of the walkway going to the left, we'd be missing information from the end. This is why we decided in the beginning to move the camera to the right, from the left from this here, to get two shots. And we're going to see how the program merges these two pictures. We're going to get it to merge. The preview loads quicker if the resolution is low and the processor on your computer is good. Okay, we're going to look at all of the projections. Well, we can see that there's a little change between the spherical and the cylindrical and the perspective. We would have to see which one is the best result in the end. As the preview size isn't very big, sometimes we have to tell the program to combine it and we can get two panoramas, one of them combined with perspective, another with spherical. We can change its names and we can decide which of the two we want. Let's try in this case with the perspective. Let's merge them. We're going to call it Pano P. P for perspective. Perspective. We're going to save and we'll wait for it to finish saving to do the same process again. But in this case, we'll save it with another projection. That way we can test in a large size which is the best result. We'll repeat the process again. We're going to tell it that in this case, the projection is going to be spherical. We'll call it Pano E. Spherical. Don't ask questions. Just E for spherical. We'll save it. And now we have two panoramas. As we have them in large, one is the spherical projection and the other is going to be the perspective. Okay. And then we have this perspective, the perspective one. Okay. All right, so we have this one and this one. I'm gonna stick with the spherical one. I think it's a little better resolved. This column here isn't bent. It has a more natural projection for our sight. The only thing I'm going to have to do is crop in more normal mode so that I can have just the part of the photo that I want. So this one. Okay, and then we have the image ready to develop. And we're going to give the shadow some more light, a little more clarity. We're going to take away some luminance. We're going to give it some more vibrance and a warmer white balance. We're going to lower the lights a little. Now we'll use a targeted adjustment with the HSL panel because I want less light in the sky and I want a little more saturation in the sky. Okay. It's like the last hour of the afternoon, so I want it to be a warm tone. Let's increase the clarity. And this would be the development I'm looking for. We're going to make a small contrast curve to increase the result, combining lights and shadows. And we can go to the last panel. And as always, we're going to create the snapshot. And here we can see how we've gone from the default settings and the ones we have now. Very good. Okay, so this is what we can do with the merging of various photos in one panorama, both whether it's horizontal or vertical, and the possibility of gaining different results depending on the projection we get from the different panoramic images. In the next classes, we're going to be seeing how to combine various images as well, but in this case, we're going to do it to make a larger dynamic range and to be able to work better with those images and have high contrast between the areas with more light and the areas that are darker. Okay, see you in the next lesson. Bye!